Want a break from the ads? I mean, want a description of this FIC? Fine. Akira, a normal human, gets reincarnated into an anime world with 3 wishes, thanks to the Random Omnipotent Being. If I can't wish for omnipotence, then I'll create a scenario where I become absurdly overpowered on day 1, he said. And that's exactly what happened. I got you, homie. The Random Omnipotent Being laughed. Day 1. It has only been 1 day. It feels like 1,000 centuries. The power of Boundless Records is forcefully changing my personality. Corrupted by the power of infinite knowledge, Akira becomes an outer god with the ability to travel worlds and seduce any woman he wants throughout the vast multiverse. This is the birth of a new outer god. Author, Murder__6 web novel. Chapter 5, Prophesized Encounter. Things settled up after a bit. The primordials woke up with brand new names and bodies, but they still looked the same. They successfully evolved into devil demigods, the second highest rank in the demon hierarchy. Thanking him once again for his generosity, Akira decided to move to the cardinal world now that he had what he wanted. It didn't hurt to follow the plot just this time, exclusively before causing yet another carnage. Alice returned to her physical form just to stabilize the magicules inside the demons to make it operational and ready to follow Akira. Alice, we're moving out, Akira said. Alice replied in his mind, Understood, master. Akira then meditated a bit, and a flow of energy ran throughout his whole body. Casting the spell, the 6 people present in the cave teleported away from it after the use of boundless manipulation. With a bright flash, the 6 were teleported out of the underworld to the cardinal world where all the fun could take place. They were now precisely in the center of the forest, just miles away from the great cave where Veldora was sealed away. Kufufu. What an amazing spell you just used. Just what you'd expect from Akira-sama, Diablo said. Indeed, Testarossa added, her devotion toward Akira only growing more and more. To be able to transcend space-time itself and thus from the underworld is an impossible task to accomplish if it's not by Akira-sama. Carrera spoke next with crossed arms. It's good to know you're so reliable. I hadn't seen that cave in my life, and I thought we wouldn't get out. Master is incredible, Ultima said happily. That's a relief, I guess, I said. I chuckled internally, but they seemed to have taken it for real. The result was them looking at me with stars in their eyes. Anyway, we started wandering around the forest, which by the way was named the Jura Forest, and explored it. It was said to be the biggest and largest rainforest in the world, so there must be something interesting here. I could feel it in my bones. And also, I felt it in my bones because there was a creep not sealing his aura, and it was starting to annoy me. Not to mention that this was the place Rimuru Tempest had established his country. We could do the same thing and make this place a little intermediary, relaxing place from world to world. Yeah, I could see that becoming a thing. My skill says this is the aura of Veldora. I'll probably go see him later. I wonder if his personality is altered or something like that, because this surely is an alternate universe, I thought. Testarossa noticed my little mumblings. My lord, is there anything on your mind you'd like to share with us? You seem to be lost in your thoughts, she asked in concern. Not really. I just thought of some things to do next, Akira replied. That aside, I think there's someone or something following us. I spoke nonchalantly, making the 4 demons go on guard. Except for Alice, who seemed to already know we were being followed. But the creature in question was very weak, so it did not matter. They stood in a fighting position, and the one who was following us quickly showed himself. It was a goblin gang, for weak creatures that stood in the lowest ranks of the monster hierarchy. Carrera moved forward and spoke with heavy intimidation. Do you 4 have a death wish? No. We have felt your presence from afar, and we came to investigate the source of it, the goblin leader said, his words shaking with fear. Sure, and now we'll go, Akira said. I moved out and so did the others. But then Carrera got even closer to the goblin leader with pure killing intent. Yeah, we'll go now. But before that, Carrera summoned an orb of destruction and pointed it at the goblins. I'll blow up your mouths that wasted our time. The goblin fell to the ground from fear. "No, wait! I beg of you!" he shouted in terror. Carrera took him by the collar and yelled at him with anger. "Talk, you piece of shit! Talk before I turn you and your friends to dust!" She yelled at him with a voice so menacing it shook the entire forest. Ultima was leaking her bloodlust aura in an intimidating way without saying a word, ready to strike. This shocking scene made most of the goblins faint. But the leader seemed determined to speak his mind. "We are desperate in finding someone to lend us help. The other tribes and races have been joining forces and beating up everyone these last weeks, and we are next on the list. Please, strong ones, save our village," he yelled, desperation clear in his voice. He did it quickly, and we immediately got the information. Smart move, seeing how the demons were on the point of snapping. So we are really at the start of canon, I thought. All records even gave me the exact second of what episode we are in the anime. Fascinating. Either way, I wanted to build our place in this precise world before going somewhere else. "Lead the way," Akira commanded. They got up almost instantly and kneeled several times before going to the actual place. We traveled for several minutes before eventually arriving at a place that looked like a dump. Building a territory, we'll see about that. I turned to face Alice, and she quickly looked away in embarrassment as she instantly knew what I was going to say. "I will make the best territory for all of us to enjoy while we hop from world to world." I could do it with the snap of a finger, but I preferred going slowly for now. I had just reincarnated, so there was no need to rush things. I wanted to know the end of this. "We have arrived," the goblin said, opening the door to what looked like a small, tight hut. As soon as he opened the door, it detached from its place and fell on the ground, making a stupid sound surge. Carrera thought to herself, "This is worse than what remains after my attacks." "Strong ones, we are grateful for accepting our selfish request," the chief said. I guess someone had already reported to him. "All right, pause this thing for a second. I'm going to spare you the long, baseless discussion and move on to the important stuff. I hope you realize that by helping you, we'll also claim this land," Akira said. The goblin chief then looked towards his companion, who looked like his son or a relative, before nodding and looking at us again. "Yes, we prepared ourselves for that eventuality. I can say that the negotiation with the goblin elder went smoothly, not really, since it seemed like I was pointing a dagger at their necks. Not literally, but it was obvious. I then went to heal the injured goblins, since killing only one wolf would take a whole party of trained goblins. I arrived at the place, which was a big hut that was lying on the ground with multiple goblins on the brink of death. "Let's see the healing abilities in my arsenal," Akira muttered. A blue holographic panel appeared in front of me with every single healing ability derived from his omniscience. Omni Recovery Weak. Used for mortals, it can also bring them back to life. Omni Recovery Intermediary. For immortals, can grant them true immortality. Omni Recovery Higher. Suitable for gods suffering from curses or imminent deaths. Omni Recovery Advanced. Heals creatures suffering from a prophecy or fate manipulation. Omni Recovery Peak. Recovers the strongest beings in existence, mostly suitable for peak tier 1 creatures. Yeah, this is exactly what I was expecting. All records seems to have a personalization perk, and that's extremely convenient, Akira said. I used the weak version of my ability. A golden green aura emanated from my body and started enveloping everyone in the room, not only the injured but also the ones who were in good shape. And immediately after, the injured or those on the brink of death regained their composure and became anew once again, in their prime. Not only that, but since it was an omni-healing, everyone was cured of all potential diseases they may have in their life. Their lifespan got increased by tens of thousands of years, and they gained lots of strength and agility. The goblins got up and were shocked by how good the healing process was. They had never felt this well ever since their birth. I used my boundless creation to make an unbreakable fortress around the village, but it was not necessary. I wasn't planning on letting any invader escape anyway. The wolves started gathering around the little village, and a bigger one who seemed to be their leader presented himself at the top of the pack. The wolves started howling, signaling the start of their attack. It was at that instant that I gave the signal to the 3 demon girls to commence the slaughter. The 4 primordial demons summoned claws on their hands and prepared to attack. With a swift sound, they cut and slashed across the wolves like butter and quickly reduced the army of wolves to less than half. All this in a matter of seconds. The wolf leader started backing up in fear, and so did his son, who by the way was by his side from the beginning. But his pride wouldn't let him back away. He then rushed towards me at high speed, since I seemed to be the leader of the operation. His speed was extremely slow when using my ultimate eye. I raised my hand and swung it across the air, creating a cut that pierced through the wolf leader. The cut was so perfect that blood did not drip until some seconds later. The ground which he was standing on was blown into little pieces, and the air that was around him evaporated, which is physically impossible. Please don't tell the physics teacher. The cut almost killed the wolves too close to it, but the survivors were terrified seeing their prideful leader dying like that. The son's reaction was the one that surprised me most. He did not feel any sadness towards the death of his father. Well, at least not too much, since he did feel some sadness there. But instead of plotting revenge, the wolf army surrendered to us. And since I have complete mastery over my abilities, the cut disappeared instantly after killing the wolves. It had a lot of potent energy, so it could have destroyed the heavens and oceans if not held back. Nice. The first battle in another world, and it's a success. Would have loved fighting a dragon or a god instead. Meh, for another time, Akira said. The battle had ended, and there was no need to continue fighting. The surviving wolves were going to join our ranks. The wolves started howling in joy at the thought of being recruited. In the morning, I asked everyone to gather in the center of the village where I announced some stuff. All right, everyone, before we start, I'm going to need to grant you guys names to create better communication, Akira said, which shocked the goblins and wolves. Instead of naming them one by one, I used an auto-naming skill that granted every single one a random name. For the elder goblin, however, I chose his name to be specifically Rigord as an homage to his deceased son. As for his second son, the name was Rigor without a D because I wanted to. The goblins underwent an evolution and transformed from simple goblins to peak goblins, which was the last evolution of goblins according to this world's records. But the evolution of goblins was infinite in the all records, so I only used this world's records instead of making the goblins outer creatures. All records was an extremely dangerous ability if used incorrectly. Good thing I possess an infinite intelligence that makes me calculate every possibility when using it. Anyway, their bodies became more humanoid, less monstrous, and each one became a beautiful person with more strength. As for the wolves, they evolved into dark werewolves, which was also the peak evolution for them. Their fire went from blue to azure silver, and they grew a lot in height. Their claws became bigger and sharper, and they even gained a human form since they were werewolves. The human body let them have a humanoid form with long blue silver hair, blue eyes, sharp claws, and a beautiful appearance. In the end, everyone knelt before me and greeted me in sync. "We are forever in your debt, Akira-sama," they said. Chapter 6, Nuclear Collapse. "We are forever in your debt, Akira-sama." I could get used to it, Akira spoke to himself. He found himself just chilling in a modern Japanese house he had just created out of thin air. Who needs workers when you have unlimited creation power? Taking the village away from Rimuru was something he successfully achieved. Now he was curious to see how the slime would react. In his free time, Akira continued using all records infinitely, learning the most ridiculous spells and techniques that could shatter an entire reality. It was absurd and scary at the same time, yet fun to know how omnipotent you were. Though that amusement came to an end when Akira heard a knocking on the door to the house. "Come in," he simply said. This newcomer was Diablo. Apparently he had some news to deliver. The demon kneeled in front of his lord. "Raise your head, Diablo, and tell me what you have found," Akira said with a small smile. Diablo then raised his head and spoke. "Cuckoo, as you say, my lord. Ahem. I have successfully returned from the mission you assigned me, and I have found some quite interesting news that you may like." Akira put his finger on his chin. "Go on." Diablo continued. "A war. between the ogres and the orcs. Normally, orcs wouldn't dare attack a more powerful race, but it wasn't the case for these ones, who are, at this moment, causing havoc in the ogre village. Akira then grinned. When he heard war, he knew that blood was going to get spilled, and he also thirsted for an interesting thing to happen. "Show me the way, Diablo," Akira said. Akira then summoned draconic wings on his back, which were crimson red, long, and had sharp claws at the edge, emitting a primordial dragon aura. "Right, my lord," Diablo said as he flew into the sky with Akira behind him. "Wait!" screamed a person behind the two, which made them stop in their tracks. It was Carrera who was running to reach them. Carrera reached them at the perfect time and spoke up with a quite bloodthirsty tone. "Can I tag along, my lord? It's a good time to test out these awesome powers." Akira said, "Fine," and the three departed. And during the flight, Diablo and Carrera would, from time to time, race at their highest speed to see who was faster. The two would travel miles and miles in a second with their greatest efforts, but with Akira still remaining behind them effortlessly. Carrera then slapped Diablo on the back while smiling evilly. "No need to try. I'm the Lord's favorite." Diablo clicked his tongue in frustration while still keeping his professional composure. "As a matter of fact, I'm sure I'm the most suitable to become my Lord's #1 subordinate, John." Carrera got angry after Diablo called her by her old nickname. She then summoned a bright yellow sphere of destruction in her palm and spoke with an enraged voice. "Call me by that again, and I'll show you a mountain of yellow colors, if you guess what I mean," she said, getting closer to Diablo, who shut up while still grinning. Akira then spoke for the first time since the start of the ride. "I think we have reached the destination." He looked below at a bunch of 3-meter-high creatures with horns, probably ogres, fighting against big, fat pigs covered in armor. The two primordial demons looked down and started landing a bit, though they stayed flying in the sky along with Akira, who wanted to see what was happening. "It looks like the pigs outnumber the ogres. Even with their strength, they can't compensate for the gap in numbers," Akira observed. "Kukuku, such an intellect is to be expected from my lord. As you said, the ogres are truly having a bad time," Diablo added. Carrera then looked at the miserable fights the two tribes were having. Such pathetic creatures, such weak attacks, such insignificance. She really wanted to interfere. She summoned multiple spheres of destruction and looked with bloodlust at these creatures, wearing an evil, passionate grin. "Do I have your word to proceed, my lord?" she asked Akira, looking at him with a wide smile. Akira then glanced at the creatures for a few seconds before speaking. "Go for it." Carrera smiled even more before launching at high speed towards the two enemy factions that she was focusing on. She flew down to the ground like a meteor before reaching them. "Take these instead," she shouted, throwing the orbs of destructive power at the battlefield. The fighting monsters then turned to face the screaming battle maniac that is Carrera, before looking at her attacks. They were so fast they did not have enough time to even react. A massive boom echoed. Huge explosions happened everywhere the spheres had dropped. Some tried to slash through the orbs, but upon contact, they exploded with the power of 100 nuclear warheads. Their heads were blown off. Their limbs flew into the sky 50 meters up. Blood splattered everywhere, and their existence was erased as their bodies turned to dust. Carrera reached the ground and looked with wickedness at the surviving monsters, who backed away a few steps after seeing her. She smiled evilly and summoned more destructive balls. In a flash of light, she ran at light speed, and each creature she crossed paths with was blown away into the sky. The attacks continued non-stop before she summoned a slightly bigger orb. She dropped it on the ground before flying up into the sky. And then, a massive explosion occurred. The ground shattered into 1,000,000 pieces after being exposed to Carrera's nuclear attack. "Gah!" screamed the hundreds of orcs and ogres who were caught up in the attack, before turning into literal dust and memories. Carrera flew up into the sky and started bombarding every creature she saw with her attacks, making enormous explosions occur and killing hundreds of living people effortlessly. The barrage of attacks she had just sent completely destroyed the scenery, and an enormous nuclear mushroom cloud flew up into the sky while strong winds blew. Akira glanced at the explosion with his sunglasses. I see more orcs and ogres ahead. Is this the main village? Diablo replied immediately. Unfortunately, this is nothing but a simple encampment for a medium-sized party of ogres who were instructed to fight the upcoming orcs. The main village of ogres is a few miles ahead, my lord. Carrera looked at how powerful her attacks had become, which made her laugh in joy seeing how her weakest attacks turned creations into ashes. She laughed maniacally and then summoned an even bigger ball of destruction, which she held and prepared to launch. How about fighting a strong opponent, you dumbass? She screamed with pleasure at the remaining monsters, who had already lost all fighting spirit. The enormous sphere covered the sky like the sun and emitted heat so high that the trees and plants were burning down. But then Akira interfered. That's enough, Carrera. Causing more destruction and chaos is unneeded. Though you succeeded in entertaining me, so I'll give you that, Akira said with crossed hands and a slight smile. Carrera looked at her lord and accepted his request. She made her attack dissipate and left them alone. As my lord said, you'll be off the hook this time, she said, returning to Akira. She joined them, and Diablo started flying in the direction of the main village. This is the Ogre Prince's perspective. Before we had the time to retaliate, those miserable orcs had breached our defenses and reached the village. At this precise moment, homes are being burned down, fellow ogres are being killed, and children are facing despair. I was running across the burning village, helping out anyone I could see. And with me was my sensei, an old man who is really good at swordsmanship. The result is that he is fighting against the orcs on his own. Big brother, more orcs in front of us, said the ogre princess, who was running alongside me, her brother. After hearing my little sister, I stopped in my tracks and took on a warfare stance, staring at the dark silhouettes coming towards us. However, after a few steps longer, I saw the people more clearly, and I was relieved to see that those were my fellow companions. You're here, your majesty, said the blue-haired, mysterious ogre. We need to get you into shelter, said a female, purple-haired ogre. I took a few seconds to analyze the situation. I then pushed my little sister towards them and gave them the order to get her to a safe place. You need to go, little sis, I said. She declined this by shaking her head right and left. I refuse to leave you alone, big brother. We were low on time, and her stubbornness was not helping. Listen to your big brother and come with us, your majesty, said the female ogre. She's right. We need to evacuate you at this moment, said the blue-haired ogre. She started doubting what to do now. But, big brother, she said, but I interrupted her. I promise you to come back safe and sound, little sister. Now go and take shelter, I said, patting her head. She calmed down a bit before asking, You promise? To which I agreed. The two ogres left with my little sister, and I pulled out my sword. All right, now that everyone's safe, I said, heading out to fight a horde of orcs coming at me. After 10 minutes, Akira and the two primordial demons continued flying in the sky until reaching the ogre village, where chaos and havoc were spreading quickly. It looks like the royalty are being held hostage, Akira said, looking at some odd-looking ogres held by a rope while an even bigger orc, the general, was laughing his ass off and threatening to kill the leader of the tribe. The three looked closely at this scene. The ogres who were captured in the rope were none other than the ogre princess, her sensei, and her two companions, all heavily wounded. While the one in front of the general was the father of the prince and princess, the leader of this tribe, who was kneeling down in front of the general in fear of dying. The ogre prince gritted his teeth in anger at seeing his courageous father in such a merciful state. Father, where is your pride as a warrior? Kneeling in front of the one who slaughtered hundreds of our kind. He screamed, but his father ignored him. The general laughed even more. Jaya ha ha ha. I agree with your son. Where is your dignity? Where is your pride? Submitting to us this easily is no fun. He laughed, and the surrounding orcs laughed as well. though the kneeling father showed no sign of remorse as he glued his head even more intensely to the harsh ground. "Please spare my life, I beg you. You can have my daughter, or even my wife," the leader screamed with teary eyes. "Father, what are you talking about?" The princess mumbled. The general giggled before throwing the corpse of a mature, feminine ogre in front of him. Her body was slaughtered, and a terrified expression was shown on her face. It was his wife in a mangled state who had tried to protect her children when the orcs first attacked their home. "Ha ha ha, we've already taken what you proposed. What else do you have to offer?" the general shouted. The father crushed his head to the ground before crying out, "Anything, but please spare me. I will be the first ogre to become a Kijin. I'll abandon anything for this sole objective." His son began crying after seeing his mother and hearing his father's words. His little sister drowned in despair, while the general was approaching the little princess for some perverted, dirty fun. She started crying her lungs out and pleading with her father to stop him, which he ignored. He even encouraged the orc to take his daughter. Every ogre was screaming for help, and Akira himself was staring at this scene emotionlessly. He was planning on activating a chain reaction which would kill every orc until extinction, but after revealing the rotten identity of the father, they were just going to be killed anyway. Carrera started shaking from anger, while Diablo looked neutrally at the scene with a slight smile, not caring about the fate of anyone here. "Such trash. I don't care if I end up blowing up those poor children, but I really want to blow everyone into oblivion," Carrera said, summoning a sphere of destruction. Akira stopped Carrera. "No, don't. Let Diablo handle it this time." Diablo looked at Akira with an excited look. "I'll handle it from here and make sure to exceed your expectations, my lord," he said in joy. Diablo disappeared at the speed of light and appeared before the general in a single second. "Cuckoo, I don't have anything against you, but my lord does, so you'll have to die," Diablo said, summoning enormous claws on his hands which he used to cut the general into 5 perfect slices before the pig had any time to react. "Kya! Blurp!" The general agonized before falling to the ground with a sliced body and spilling insides. The ogres looked at this scene with wide-open jaws, and the orcs started taking a battle stance, even though they were confused by what had just happened. "Don't forget the leftovers, Diablo," Akira shouted from the sky. Diablo nodded happily and made his claws even longer, so powerful and spiky that he was able to reach all the orcs on the battlefield. He flew at extreme speed and cut down every orc he saw into 2 parts perfectly, and all that in less than a second. Corpses of pigs were falling to the ground by the hundreds every single second, while a dark, invisible aura was traveling through the entire village with high velocity. And after killing everyone, he reappeared below Akira and Carrera. "Now for the grand finale," Diablo said as he snapped his fingers. With the flick of his finger, all the fire burning down the structures of the village stopped deteriorating the buildings and transferred into the bodies of the orcs, burning them into ashes. The village was safe once again, if not for the disgusting, burning orc bodies, and Diablo cut the rope off the ogres held hostage. They were detached, but they still kept their guard up in front of such a high being. "Young master, don't make any sudden move. He's at least an archdemon," said the sensei, who was beside the ogre prince. The ogres present dropped cold sweat from their foreheads as they glanced with terror at Akira's subordinate, who was emitting an aura of bloodlust. "Rest assured, as long as my lord does not order me to, I won't be attacking any of you. As of now, you may consider me an ally," Diablo said, reassuring the ogres and making his ferocious claws disappear. The ogres then looked at Diablo with a shocked expression. Normally, you wouldn't trust a demon so easily, but hearing him say it in such an elegant manner made them drop their guard. Carrera looked at Diablo giving his emotional speech with a raised eyebrow before asking Akira, "So, what now, my lord?" Akira then sighed before descending to the ground, with Carrera following him. "I'll see what I can do," Akira said briefly. Chapter 7. Naming and Wish. The ogres calmed down a bit after Diablo's rescue. They all started protesting against the leader who had betrayed them. And in the end, his own son ended his life by slicing his head off his body and showing it to the whole tribe, who started making fun of the deceased traitor. Akira presented himself, and they all knelt down before him after a little introduction. He decided to recruit them because an army of evolved ogres would truly be powerful. According to the Akashic records, their next evolution was into an enhanced race called Kijin, but if Akira were to be the one to name them, they would directly go to the pinnacle race for them, which was Oni plus a demon lord seed. But the main reason he decided on naming them was the fact that calling those who were nameless was a real headache. There was a total of 300 ogres, including the prince, his sister, and his companions. All the monsters were lining up in 5 lines, all with 60 each. Akira was standing on a platform with Carrera, Ultima, Testarossa, Diablo, and Rigard behind him. The prince and his allies were kneeling before Akira, each one beside the other. "I'll start with you 6, Akira said. They closed their eyes in expectation and waited for Akira to commence. Normally, they wouldn't submit to anyone this easily, but Akira had everything they would ever hope for. Perhaps his principles were a bit too extreme, but it does not matter, really. And just like in the anime, they were all named by the same names: Benimaru, Shuna, Soai, Cheyenne, Hakuro, and Kurobe. But the evolution was not the same. Upon granting them names, an enormous amount of magicules transferred from Akira's unlimited reserve, and the 6 started with their evolution, as well as choosing an occupation of their choice, which was a new feature to them. Light particles surrounded each one of them, and they went through a big physical change. The light then burned down before revealing the new characters. They became a bit taller, and their appearance became more human-like with modern touches. Their hair became longer and more colored, while their original dye remained. Their horns became less big and wide but were now sharper. The old man became much younger than what he used to look like, while the feminine ogres, now Onis, became more beautiful with much smoother skin. But the evolution didn't just affect the physical side. Their power had also drastically increased, with a much bigger magicule pool and more skills and abilities. If we were to compare them now, they were as strong as a serious Malim, excluding her Satinal. But this sudden increase of power destabilized the weak and exhausted bodies of the Onis, who fell unconscious. The other ogres got a bit worried because of this, but Akira reassured them by explaining it. Akira then used his auto-naming and gave names to every single one of these ogres, who also fell unconscious after their evolution. The demons looked with a confused expression at all these new subordinates who were all falling like flies. They were grateful that they were already strong before meeting Akira, and if they were to fall unconscious in front of him, they would rather die than wake up to see their lord's disappointed gaze. "Oh, it gives me shivers just by thinking about it," Testarossa said, thinking of this scenario. Akira raised an eyebrow after hearing the mumbling Testarossa with his ultimate ear. He gave it no thought but soon used his time acceleration on the Onis so that they would wake up. This is what he did, and immediately everyone started waking up with some light headaches. The 6 Onis looked at Akira with a beyond respectful gaze. The naming did not really hypnotize them into serving Akira, but it did give Akira a great sense of purpose in their lives. "My lord," Benimaru said as he got to his feet. The other 5 also stood up. The 6 then bowed deeply to Akira and thanked him for this blessing. "We thank you for your benevolence and the opportunities you gave us, Lord Akira," they said simultaneously. The other Onis also bowed deeply and stayed that way for a few seconds. "You may rest. Also, do your best," Akira said, and everyone replied, "Right," simultaneously. And then, an incredible idea came to Akira's mind. Though I'm not telling you about it, for suspense. But in a nutshell, he wanted to make his subordinates even stronger so when he leaves this world, he has some people to count on. Though he would definitely leave a clone of himself in his place. He spoke to Alice through telepathy, asking, "Hey Alice, what does it take to bloom the Demon Lord seed within the new recruits? If we were to make an army of Demon Lord class monsters, it would certainly be useful." Alice replied to him, "Master, you will need to collect 10,000 souls for each evolution. So for the 6 Onis and the 4 primordial demons, you will need 100,000 souls." Sounds good, Akira mumbled slowly. The newly named Benimaru stood forward before Akira. He knelt down and prepared to request a selfish demand. You may speak, Akira said, looking at Benimaru. Benimaru gulped, but then the words finally started escaping his mouth. My lord, I thank you once again for the opportunities you have given us. We would not have wanted anything more than this, and for that, we will eternally serve you with our undying loyalty. However, we would like to demand something of you, if we may, he said, stopping at the end to see Akira's reaction. Diablo, who was dissatisfied by this, spoke up. Are you saying that all this was not enough to satisfy you? Sweat formed on Benimaru's forehead. Diablo's remark wasn't the nicest, but Akira wanted to see the Oni's reaction to it. That is not what I meant, Benimaru clarified. I am grateful for your benevolence, my lord, but we need to find the culprit who sent the orcs to attack our village. The souls of our fellow comrades won't rest in peace as long as there's someone out in the open going on killing sprees, he said, thinking especially of his dead mother. Killing sprees? Do you know who you are talking to? Anyway, what follows this is a massive attack by an army of hundreds of thousands of orcs. They can be killed with just a finger snap. Nothing represents a threat to Akira anyway. He is already the strongest in the entire world of Tensura, so all he can do is use it as a sandbox for experiments. Sure, I don't see what's wrong with avenging your dead people, Akira said. However, we won't go for the search immediately. I still want to do something now. He said this while switching his gaze to look at Testarossa, who jumped in surprise and blushed a bit because she thought of something lewd. This earned her hateful gazes from Ultima and Carrera, while Diablo was just wondering what their problem was. I completely accept your condition, my lord, and I am looking forward to putting the plan into motion, Benimaru said with a slight smile because he didn't really expect Akira to accept this. Night had fallen, and Akira had teleported to his pocket dimension where he was hiding his infinity castle. It was a palace which was in the middle of an artificial void he had created. The palace was big, spanning hundreds of stages and numerous rooms filled with lots of furniture decorated with gold, diamonds, and other jewelry. He rested on his bed and started thinking about what to do next. He wasn't just going to sit in this world forever, and he planned on going somewhere else after some time. He was a god, and the only limit was his imagination. He got a bit excited after thinking about all the things he could do, but he left his fantasies once he heard a knocking on the portal leading to his room. Yeah, you may enter, Akira said nonchalantly. The portal opened, and the figure entered before stopping in front of Akira. It was Carrera, who was standing with a smile because her lord had summoned her exclusively. He did tell her about this earlier, but she did not expect to be teleported to an endless castle in the void. It was a privilege, to say the least. She kneeled before Akira as he stood up. I'm glad you're here, Akira said, getting up from his bed. You've done some excellent work, Carrera. I wanted to congratulate you for your dedication and thirst for serving me. His words made Carrera grin in joy and blush in happiness. I'm so glad to hear that from you, my lord, she said. To encourage you to do even better in the future, I'll give you the privilege of making one wish. You can demand anything, and it will come right away, Akira offered. He then snapped his fingers, and a light orb appeared in front of Carrera, which she held with both hands while looking at it with absolute focus. Anything I want? She said in shock. Yeah, anything. It can go from unlimited wealth to resurrections and erasures, Akira said playfully. Carrera thought for a few seconds before formulating her wish. She blushed a bit before mumbling. The small white orb disappeared after Carrera formulated her wish. Kira smirked. I see, he said as he read Carrera's wish. Carrera blushed heavily and looked away in embarrassment. Chapter 9. Standing on a Million Lives. Morning came, and Akira thought of going to one of the nearby countries with Testarossa. This country was one of the most important places within the Falmouth Kingdom, hosting all of the nobility of the kingdom. But most importantly, it was also one of the most corrupt places in the world. Having all the nobility crowded in there made it a complete shithole where all kinds of illegal activities took place. such as drugs, human trafficking, and slave trading. Perfect place to collect souls. Oh, and by the way, it was Alice's idea to come here. Akira and Testarossa entered the city by flying over the top and landing on a nearby building. Also, Testarossa seemed to emit some bloodlust ever since they came here, and not because this was a rotten place, but mostly because she had some beef going on with this kingdom years ago. Akira raised an eyebrow at Testarossa, who quickly regained her composure and jumped in surprise and embarrassment. I'm truly sorry for compromising the mission, my lord. I would accept any kind of punishment, no matter the cruelty, she said, trying to keep a serious, professional face. Don't worry about it. We still have some time before we start the plan. Any suggestions on what to do? Akira asked her, which made her sigh in relief. Testarossa looked at Akira with a surprised face. I am fine with anything, my lord. Akira then looked down from the building after hearing a few noises. He glanced at some nobles beating up a demi-human who was obviously held as a slave. Akira looked at the scene with a poker face for a few seconds, completely emotionless, with a freezing glare that became more and more dangerous. And once reaching its peak, the human exploded in a fountain of blood. I think we should observe this human nation a bit before doing the whooping, Akira said with a slight smile as he glanced at the people running away and screaming at the noble's gruesome death. Testarossa, who had witnessed the garbage person's death, sensed some kind of satisfaction in it. It made her happy to see a citizen of this country perish. My lord, I'm really sorry to ask you such a question, but, Testarossa said, coming close to Akira with shaky hands. May I consider this as a date of sorts? She continued. Akira then looked for a few seconds at her glowing crimson eyes, which were shining with expectation. He then held Testarossa's shaky hands and spoke to her. I guess so. What better place to date than one of the most luxurious places in the world? He said. Testarossa's eyes lit up brightly, and she opened her mouth wide in a big smile that showed all of her happiness. She had the exact expression of a Yandra being confessed to by her crush, and her red glowing eyes made the metaphor feel incredibly real. Well, one thing is for sure. I'm really eager to taste this world's food. I haven't eaten a single thing ever since my new birth, thought Akira while holding his non-existent stomach. Testarossa raised her hand as if asking for permission to demand something. HM? No need to raise your hand, Akira said, looking at her as she immediately lowered her hand in embarrassment. I think the best way to start a date is by reviewing the culinary delicacies of this place. My lord, she said, smiling. If that is your wish, then let's go, Akira said, jumping from building to building until they reached the restaurant streets. Soon after, the two entered an establishment of the highest quality, where they intended on spending the rest of the day until receiving the signal. The two sat around a luxurious golden table, which earned them weird gazes from all around the restaurant, seeing how beautiful yet foreign-looking these people were. Akira was really hungry at the moment. It was impossible for him to feel physical hunger, so it was more of a psychological craving. The transition from human to God was still incomplete when it came to psychological thinking, so not eating, sleeping, or resting felt a bit weird and out of place for him. He ordered a full-course meal while Testarossa obtained a few glasses of invaluable wine during Akira's inner monologue. Testarossa looked at the wine a bit before taking the cup in her hands and drinking it in one go. More, she said. The maids quickly bowed before bringing some more alcohol for Testarossa to drink. She also drank those with pleasure before demanding more once again, always obtaining more cups of delicious wine, which shocked the maids, who stared with wide eyes at the thirsty demon before them. Testarossa looked at the empty cups before her and started thinking. A human would probably not be able to drink all this without going into a coma. Maybe I should hold myself back a little bit, she said. Akira then looked at Testarossa with a poker face. You just thought about that now? He mumbled slowly before sighing. The plates were quickly presented on the table, and Akira started digging in without holding back. The unneeded desire to eat made it so that he didn't feel true starvation, but since his physical functions were so developed, the food personalized itself into something more adequate for Akira, who just got introduced back to normal human pleasures, excluding his already existing desires. In less than a minute, the two had already eaten their food and had both quite enjoyed it. Akira paid with some money he had just created, and before leaving, he heard some nasty commentaries about Testarossa from the maid's mumblings, making it an easier decision for him. But that was for later. The two enjoyed a little walk across the streets of this kingdom, picking up various snacks which were all more delicious than the last. In a dress shop, Akira and Testarossa entered because she had insisted on it. Testarossa really wanted to try out some dresses in the heat of this date. After all, she was the most mature and girlish of the trio, so it was only natural to expect something like this. But it was mostly to impress her master with her beauty. Testarossa came out of the changing room wearing a long white dress which highlighted her silver hair even more, while her eyes were like piercing scarlet masterpieces sculpted with the utmost care. Not bad. When is the marriage? Akira teased her a bit. Testarossa held her dress in fluster because she wasn't sure if her lord was teasing her or if he was dead serious. And so, to not take risks, she replied to fit both scenarios. There isn't anyone I would marry other than you, my lord. If it is your wish, she replied. Good to know she's open to the idea, he thought, getting closer to her. You sure look great like this. Your beauty would be wasted if you always stuck to those uniforms which the artisans made for you, he said to her, caressing her smooth leg, which made her blush a bit. Oh my, if that is your wish, my lord, then I'll wear plenty of clothes to please you, she said in happiness. Good, Akira said with a playful chuckle, giving her a sudden nudge that made her jump in shock and blush, because this was the first time Akira had been so physical with her. I am glad to be so close to you, my lord, even if it is just for today, she mumbled slowly. They hung out a bit more during this little date of theirs. Testarossa was in heaven while Akira was just following her around the town until it was nighttime. They came back to the place where they would spend the night. Testarossa was overjoyed by the day, while Akira remained as neutral as ever. Akira did have a fun time with Testarossa, and he did plan on having more fun like this before moving on to the next event. But well, one step at a time. Now it was just time to have some fun messing with these powers and mastering them.